Greetings and welcome to the October Progress Report video for ModTown 2015, a project by the community for the community. Now, our modders have been hard at work over the last month preparing things for you guys to see in this video, and ModTown 2015 is really coming along nicely. We've got dozens of buildings and new models like Autoclock's Tower there in the background for you guys to check out in this video. And one of the major things I want to announce just real quick though is that we are extending the release date of ModTown 2015. We're now aiming for the spring of next year, probably around March 2016. And the reason for that is even though we can probably finish all the buildings for ModTown 2015, there's no way we can get all the quests done and also all the dungeons that we really want to get done by December of 2015. So we're just going to extend it a bit, and this also means that the deadline has been extended. So if you want to, add things to ModTown 2015, we are still accepting claims, and in fact we have a ton of new plots open for you guys to check out if you so desire. And again, I encourage everyone to participate in this mod project. This is a project for the community, by the community, and we want everyone to get involved. Now, having said that, we're going to start out our tour with Melkor's Claim. You saw the exterior there for a bit while I was still talking. And it's sort of a combination of Telephony and Velothi architecture, and it's really just beautifully designed on the interior. Melkor has a very creative eye for detail, it has to be said. Now, Melkor's Claim is pretty much already finished. In fact, it's been integrated into the ModTown master file, and you can download it and play today if you so desire. But there might be a few bugs that are still in the system, so to speak, and those will probably be patched up at a later date. But anyway, Melkor has added his own avatar into his claim already, and you can talk to him, but we're not going to show that off in this particular video because I want to leave a few things for you guys to discover on your own. But we are going to show off this new gameplay mechanic that Melkor has created that allows you to create soul gems by using some mining tools and an inscriber, I think it's called. And this is something that you'll find in Melkor's basement, which I just have to say is just really well designed. You've got this very mystical basement going on with this giant cavern and this night sky in the background. It's all very cool looking, great atmosphere. And you can essentially harvest soul gems from these crystals down here by just mining them with a, I think it's a pick and a hammer. And I believe Melkor plans on adding this to Lithodonia at some point in time, but ModTown 2015 does have it first, so when you play ModTown you'll be able to check out this crafting mechanism for yourself. And another thing you'll be able to check out is that Melkor actually has a series of Telephony-style dungeons beneath his claim, as you can see here, and they also have some interesting scripting involved, including these levitation fields, that if you walk through them you just suddenly start flying. And going back to the inscriber here, Melkor actually has a video of this up on his channel that you can check out and see how it all works. Next up we have Autoclock's Tower, and this actually isn't the first version of Autoclock's Tower. I think he's gone through about 5 or 6 different iterations at this point. But I have to say that Autoclock is just a really creative individual. He's come up with all these crazy designs, and they keep getting crazier with every iteration. And it'll be interesting to see if this is going to be the final tower that we'll see in ModTown 2015, or if he'll come up with an even crazier design. And it'll certainly be an interesting one to explore. Now, the next model plot that we're going to be looking at is, I believe, plot number 28. And this is a large Smithy Shop designed by Wretched Fetcher, and it's basically right next door to the Auto Tower. And Wretched Fetcher actually has some plans to include it in the lore of this Smithy Shop and the family of Nords that live here. And I have to say that this shop is a really high-detailed looking place. It's got a lot of cool things going on with it. And I don't know where Wretched Fetcher has been this entire time. I mean, he hasn't released any mods previously. But based on the rather obvious skill level that he's displaying here in ModTown 2015, he is very talented with interior and exterior design, and I'd love to see some more mods by him, hopefully in the future, should he get around to it. But anyway, this family of Nords already has some dialogue and some written documents included, and I believe Wretched Fetcher plans to add in a few quests later on, though I don't know if that's a guarantee at this point. A lot of the plots haven't exactly gone into quest development yet. But anyway, the Smithy Shop itself has a really interesting design. It's sort of rectangular in shape with the courtyard in the middle, and really the shop itself kind of acts as the walls of the courtyard, so there's a lot of narrow hallways and rooms, and some of the interior design isn't quite finished yet, but it's a very unique looking building. And sort of moving on to another unique looking building, we have the plot for Shyly Mr. Wolf, and this is a sort of combined Nordic and Telephony themed architecture here. And it's a very unique looking building, as you can see here from the exterior, with the Telephony Tower coming out of the Nordic hall right there. And the interior is pretty interesting looking as well. As you can see, there's some Telephony roots scattered about and all these candles that are really well placed with the dark light setting to just sort of give this very atmospheric feel. Now, as far as I know, Shyly Mr. Wolf hasn't quite added his modder avatar yet, so this plot still isn't quite complete. But the interior design aspect of it is very interesting, I think. Combining Nordic and Telephony architecture is sort of like combining two very different cultures together, so it's a rather intriguing combination. And anyway, just sort of moving on, our next plot is Drakemoor's plot, which adds a large beach house to the eastern shores of ModTown, and this is a custom model that Drakemoor has built himself. And he's also already included his model avatar with a ton of unique dialogue about different subjects that you can ask him about. And I just have to say that the scenery out here is really fantastic. I mean, you can see Autoclock's tower in the background with Shyly Mr. Wolf's Telephony Nordic tower as well. And there's some just really lovely gardens that Drakemoor has built out here along the edges of his house. And there's also several other NPCs that he's created with custom dialogue, and at least one of them has a quest that you can go on. I believe it's a simple fetch quest. And it's quite obvious that Drakemoor has done quite a bit of work on his plot, and it really shows, and it's quite nice looking. And really, it's just very scenic. It's a sort of quiet and quaint place to go out and visit and take in the beautiful views of ModTown. And sort of moving on to the interior side of things, Drakemoor has created a lot of unique items for the project, and some of these actually carry over from a previous community project that he was doing back in the day for Great House Fligety. And Great House Fligety used to have a ton of community projects on their website. Like, they had a landmass that they were creating for the community and the community members. I don't know what happened to that exactly. But a lot of this stuff carries over from something called Moddermas, and that was a sort of Christmas-like celebration of modding for the Morrowind community. But it sort of fell apart, and Drakemoor has been taking his assets that he created for that project and converting them over to ModTown 2015. And, you know, I've been saying this a lot, actually, is that you can always recycle assets and interiors into additional projects. And I'd just like to point out there that Drakemoor has this really cool-looking globe of Tamriel, which is quite nice-looking. And anyway, you'll find a ton of unique items that Drakemoor has created, sort of populating his modder home here in ModTown 2015. That includes paintings, the chairs, the couches that he's created, and even a chessboard from Star Trek that you might remember from the Next Generation. And sort of moving on, this next plot is on the edge of the lake of ModTown, and this is Mortishu's plot, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He got on to me for not pronouncing his name correctly last time, so hopefully I'm doing better this time around. And it's sort of a large Daedric ruin that's covered in Telephony roots, and I believe there's also an underground Telephony Tower. And it's another combination of Telephony architecture with other architectural sets. I've noticed that's actually quite common with a lot of our modders. A lot of our modders have been using Telephony architecture. So, expect to see a lot of Telephony things in ModTown 2015. And anyway, you can sort of see the interior here. There's a lot of non-hostile NPCs that populate this Daedric ruin, with Telephony roots that are just sort of scattered about everywhere. And it's pretty nice looking. Telephony architecture manages to mix well with just about everything as we've seen so far. It works with Nordic architecture, works with Velothi architecture, and it certainly works with Daedric ruin architecture as well. And anyway, this is the Telephony Tower that I mentioned earlier, and this part is still sort of under construction, so we're not going to show off a whole lot. And this next plot, which is right next door, is Door Michigan 64's plot, and it's sort of an interesting combination of Dunmer Stronghold, Duma Ruin, and, again, Telephony architecture. And it doesn't have an interior yet, so that's pretty much all we can show off of that. And the next one we're going to show off is the Town Gathering Hall, and again, this is just the exterior, the interior has not been developed, and this has been created by Lady Phoenix Fire Rose. And it's a pretty imposing town hall, and also not too far away is our bathhouse that you can see right there, with Velothi architecture and some Telephony roots sprouting out of the top there, and also a gambling hall over in the corner with some indoor architecture. Now, on the interior of the bathing house, we have a sort of main entryway here with a bunch of various perfumes and things that you might see in a bathhouse. And down below we have the sort of changing rooms and also the common baths. And really, I guess the bathhouse doesn't really serve much of a purpose, it's just more something for the residents of ModTown to enjoy as a public service. And moving on, the next building that I'm showing off here is the Gambling Hall, and this was developed by Symbiote Dinosaur and Mortissues again. Really hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly this time, because otherwise I'm just messing up all over the place. And here you can find a variety of different types of games that you can just sort of waste money on with a random chance of succeeding, you know, basically gambling. And I also think there's a few drugs that you can try, so there's some skooma going on and some other things, and it's a shady location, but it's where you can just sort of let loose and try and win some profits at least, and not lose too much money. And next up we have one of the larger plots from ModTown 2015, and arguably one of the more unique plots as well, and that's Lady Phoenix Fire Rose's plot here, and it sort of occupies an entire island that is covered in ice, snow, and, well, fire, as you can sort of see here, and it's an interesting combination, if also a bit eccentric, and it also has a very interesting architectural style here for the main building. It's sort of a combination of that castle from Solstein and also an imperial keep. And really the entire island is just full of interesting details. You've got all these pine trees that are native to colder climates, and then you've got these giant mushrooms which are, you know, sort of more temperate climate oriented. And it's just an interesting mixture. You've got the lava surrounding the island and the ice flow surrounding it as well. And you know, I just have to say that this sort of random and eccentric combination of things actually works really well. It's a beautiful looking island, and going over to the interior sort of things, you got more of this, again, eccentric combination of stuff. You got lava, you've got ice, you've got an imperial architecture set, but with Daedric elements included as well. And in the throne room, it's so gorgeous looking. You got fire ceilings and ice floors and these balls of ice everywhere, and it's beautiful to behold. It's very well crafted, and I really like how all the elements come together. And presumably this is going to be the throne room for Lady Phoenix Fire Rose eventually. And obviously this claim isn't quite finished yet, but it is mostly finished. And sort of moving on to the next bit of our claims, we're going to be looking at some of the claims by Orendak, which includes his plot and also a shop that he's building right next door, as you can see here. And out in the back of Orendak's claim, you can see this rather lovely little garden, and you can just barely make out the Daedric Tower in the background, which is just framed perfectly. And Orendak's claim is composed of about 3 different buildings, and right next door is also Danjib's claim, and Danjib just has the exterior of his claim finished at this point. It's a very large imperial-style mansion. But going back to Orendak's claim, his main building is actually another shop, and he's got a ton of unique writing included in here, sort of explaining all the shop displays. And this is sort of supposed to be an adventurer's paradise. An adventurer would come through here and buy any sort of gear they need, and most of the gear is for lower leveled characters and stuff like that. And the place is actually geared towards lower level characters altogether, since it's supposed to act as a place that a player can come to visit, and there's free beds on the 2nd floor, and I think free food in the kitchen as well, which you can see here, which just sort of gives a place for the player to call home if you know, they're not high enough level to actually have a residence on ModTown 2015 itself. And you know, something that's worth mentioning is that Orendak is actually a published novelist. He has a book on Amazon, and I've included a link to it in the description below. And if you have the Kindle application on the PC, you can actually request a free sample. And you know, something I've been thinking about is maybe starting a video series reviewing and sort of giving a summary of some of the books that modders have published, because there are actually quite a few published novelists in the modding community, which perhaps isn't that surprising considering that modding is a rather creative hobby and it attracts creative people. But anyway, Orendak's book is called The White Wolf and the Darkness, and it's a science fiction book, and you can find it on Amazon.com. And sort of going back to ModTown 2015, that shop you just saw was a pet shop, and the idea is that eventually those pets will be scripted so that you can buy them and they can be your companions. And this building here is Orendak's actual tower, and this is where his avatar is going to live. And moving on, this is Symbiote Dinosaur's plot, and many of you will recognize it from the last video, but he sort of updated it a little bit, included some ice packs and some new furniture, and it looks a lot nicer than it was before, I have to say. Now, the next building that we're going to be looking at is a large common manor that was designed by Tirlik, and this is going to be the home of an NPC noble family that's living in ModTown 2015. We haven't exactly decided if they play an important part in any of the main quests or anything quite like that. Right now it's just furnished, and it's a 3-story manor if you include the basement. And next up we have a Rose Shops designed by Lady Phoenix Fire Rose, and this includes an Alchemy Shop and a Smithy Shop. And yes, we have another Smithy Shop. I think we're up to about 5 or 6 Smithy Shops. We definitely have a plethora of them, to say the least. And sort of going into the interior, it hasn't quite been detailed yet, but these shops have been furnished. And you can probably tell that they are going to be pretty crowded once they're actually all finished and done with. There's a lot of display spaces and not a whole lot of room to walk, which is something I kind of like personally. It kind of makes the place feel lived in. And down here we have the sort of basement of the Smithy Shop, where there's a bunch of ingots and ores and other things that a smith would probably use to forge new weapons and armor. And here we have the Alchemy Shop, and this one really isn't quite anywhere near done yet. It's still in the finishing phase, but it looks quite nice so far. And the next plot that we're going to be taking a look at is broader Fisk's plot, and this is a combined Rodarin, Common Imperial, and Telephony style architecture building, which is a really interesting mix of architectural styles there. You don't usually see Rodarin and Telephony combined, let alone with Imperial architecture. Needless to say, that's going to be a very interesting interior once it's finished. And moving on, right next door is Flash 3113's plot, and this is actually designed to be an Argonian mission of sorts, and a refuge for Argonian characters, and just Argonians fleeing Morrowind in general. And it has a kind of swampy feel about it, with a lot of Imperial architecture. And one of the unique things that Flash 3113 has done is that he created a ton of new ingredients that sort of represent Argonian culture right here in ModTown 2015. Right now you will only be able to find those sorts of new ingredients in this particular mod package. And it's just another unique aspect of ModTown 2015. And you know, I just have to say that I've been blown away by the amount of new content that's been created for this project. I mean, there's been so many new models and 3D assets created, so many new NPCs, dialogue entries, books, other writings, and interiors designed, and ModTown 2015 isn't even half done yet. We still have a really long way to go before we're finished, and it just makes me really excited for the day that you guys will finally be able to play it and see all this content for yourselves. And of course, you can speed that process along by just joining the project. I mean, modding is pretty easy, guys. You can do it in a few hours, and it'll just help us tremendously. But going back to Flash's plot here, he's got a ton of books here on Black Marsh and Argonians, which really add a ton of lore to what's already existing in the universe. But anyway, sort of moving on, this next plot is Logan's plot, and really it's kind of obvious as it has Logan's trademark high-resolution bump-mapped Hladu textures applied to it. And you'll notice that it is basically consisting of a Hladu tower and a house with a garden out back, and there's also this really lovely looking docks out here as well with a longboat, and it has a beautiful view of Little Red Mountain there in the distance, and that just a stunning tower that Melkor built, that Daedric Tower there. And it's a really very lovely area, and the interior is also quite atmospheric and realistic looking with those light beams that are coming from the windows. And Logan has included some new assets for ModTown 2015 as well, though I believe these assets were originally created for his Total Conversion mod. I believe it's called Eden. And he also has this model avatar here, though he doesn't have any dialogue yet. That's probably coming later. And it's really a very nice looking plot. It also has some new paintings that he's created. And I believe these paintings are actually screenshots that he sort of touched up a bit with some watercoloring effects, and they really are quite stunning. They depict some very interesting vistas that are just quite beautiful looking, and certainly add quite a bit of a character to his plot. And moving on, the next thing we're going to be looking at is Fulgor's Duma Dungeons. And Fulgor, as you might know, is the author of the Balmora Underworld mod, which adds the Thousand Lanterns Way, and also a set of Duma Dungeons underneath the great city of Balmora. And he's basically done the same thing for ModTown 2015, creating a very unique and expansive set of Duma ruins that are combined with some large caverns underneath ModTown. And they really are quite impressive. I mean, some of these interior sizes are massive. You could literally get lost in these dungeons for quite a while. There's probably about, right now, maybe an hour or two of content for dungeon delving. And they're not quite finished yet. Fulgor is still working on them. And eventually you'll even be able to meet Fulgor's avatar towards the end of these dungeons whenever they get finished. And it just adds, some more things for you to do in ModTown 2015, since dungeon delving is a major part of the Morrowind and Elder Scrolls experience, and these are definitely some unique ones that you're going to remember for a long time to come. But anyway, that pretty much wraps up everything I have to show you guys today. It's been a lot of progress that we've made on ModTown 2015, but we still have quite a long ways to go, and of course with the extended deadline going into March of 2016, there's plenty of time to sign up and claim a plot, or design an NPC, or write a book, or really do anything you can imagine. Anything that you can do, we can probably use in some way or another. I mean, we do need dialogue, we do need NPCs, we do need books and quests and interiors and exteriors and 3D models, so if you're good at any of that, we can take it. And anyway, we'd just be really happy to have you guys on board. ModTown 2015 is, after all, a project by the community, for the community, celebrating the community and celebrating Morrowind and the amazing modders that have added so much to it over the years, and we'd just be really happy to have you guys contribute to it. And I'll see you guys all next time with our November progress video in about a month or so.